Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Bears go down. It's the seventh straight Big 12 win for the good guys. Chance McMillian makes us scream fire in a crowded arena. And what similarities does this team share with its elite predecessors?
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you and basking in the glow of a seventh consecutive Big 12 win as the Red Raiders top the Baylor Bears from United Supermarkets Arena. 73-59, the final score. Was a wild night at the USA, one of the most electric environments of the season, maybe the most. And it went the right way for the good guys as you avoid giving up a home opportunity. And now you hit the road again coming up this weekend for a huge matchup in Tucson. But took care of business and did it in entertaining fashion as well as you down Scott Drew and company.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the environment and the atmosphere. It was not lost on Grant after the game. What a difference that makes. And that was maybe – I'm trying to think back to like last season. It was easily the best atmosphere of this season. May have been the best atmosphere in the Grant McCasland era, but and you which has just been a season and a half, if you will. And you had some good ones last year. I don't know, that one felt a bit different because it was an 8:00 tip. You had students filled up the student section like well before tip time, and you only have one more Saturday home game left. That's it. The rest of these are these, midweek games. You've got an 8:00 tip next week. But anyway, I think that needed to be pointed out, and I'm glad you did that because it was juiced. And as your team maneuvers their way through this stuff, you're gonna need it. There's going to come a time where you just kind of don't have it or the shots aren't going in, and that can kind of get you over the hump. And this is why, the Kansases and the Houstons are contending in so many of these years, whether it's recently or the last 15 or 20 for Kansas, because they just don't lose at home. And it's because that crowd gets them plays into the way the game can be called at times, whatever. But it was awesome. And Chance McMillian decided to turn himself into a flamethrower and got that place on fire, literally. Dropping them in from deep and not even watching it go in. Doesn't even stay to see the body drop. But
didn't even get to enjoy his own shot. He's like Kanye, not getting to enjoy his own music, for the rest of the world.
That's right. It's exactly the same. You nailed it. Yes.
That was amazing. I want to get to McMillan specifically in just a minute, but really the team effort that we saw, as kind of has been the case, Chris, when you have, JT Toppin 8-8, so not his biggest statistical night, but you find a way to still put it together as a team. And we've touched on it so many times, kind of the versatility that it seems like you have as far as sort of which kind of rotating cast of characters it will be this time around. And there are some consistents, like Chance McMillian is one of those really big consistents, but sometimes the faces sort of change, but you find a way to have success. So, you're telling me on a night like that for JT Toppin, you win by 14 against Scott Drew and the Bears. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not so sure about that, but that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, and Baylor's they are very talented. I am glad you don't have to go play them in Waco and don't have to see that group again. It seems like a tough matchup for a lot of teams just with their athleticism. And if Omer doesn't get in foul trouble, he's a problem. But yeah, JT I thought played really well early, and you found him on a couple of easy buckets. Baylor's going to always mix the game up and throw some zone at you and trying to junk the game up a little bit and get you off a rhythm. And you identified that early, but then you started to settle a bit. I thought when the game was kind of back and forth. You just kind of were settling for contested jumpers and not really getting into the paint because, Toppin kind of tweaked that ankle. And it's always been something with this team. Just can't get everybody right. Baylor's saying the same thing, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying, that that they've got their problems, but you just have really, it's like he gets ejected and he's going to come in this thing and playing pretty good because he's fresh, and then it's like, oh, we're going to tweak the old ankle. And and you could tell Overton, while he gave you some good minutes off the bench and whatnot, but you don't have your full healthy 8 or 9 or whatever right now, but you're grinding, you're figuring it out. And I thought we'll get the Chance in a bit, but Darrion Williams I thought was pretty darn good in this game because you dominated the glass in the first half, and that's what Baylor is typically good at. They're good at shooting threes and they're good at rebounding, and they just have really good athletes on the floor. Because like if you were to have like just an athleticism contest as far as speed and ability to jump and all those things, Baylor may have as much of that as anybody in the Big 12. But I thought Darrion Williams, who's not exactly the fastest or the biggest jumper or whatever, but I mean, for him to have 7 offensive rebounds is nuts. Those are the holy grail in basketball, because those are the hardest rebounds to get, is the offensive ones. And I think you went to halftime with like your second chance points. It was like 9-0 in favor of Texas Tech, but that allowed you to kind of control the first half. But D5 is one of his best games in a while, probably in a couple of weeks. And he's been battling ankle issues as well, but that was one of the best games he'd played in a while. And it was his work on the glass as much as, and he's got this clutch component. We talk about some of the shots maybe he misses at the end of a game, or whatever, or some opportunities he has, but he hits the one at Kansas State. I think the 3 he hits in Houston to tie the game. But then last night, you mix in that Baylor had cut it to 5, and it's like, okay, this is about to get real dicey. And then he hits a 3 that is not in the flow of the offense. He just pulls the trigger and he rattles one in, and you're like, oh, okay, we can breathe again. Back up 8. But he's just got a little bit of a clutch component. But he was a big part of what you did last night.
I was thinking the same exact thing when that shot went down, that it almost doesn't matter what he's done up to that point in the game. In some of those biggest minutes, it's like you can count on him for a bucket here or there that will do something significant for you, and he did it again against Baylor. The run for Chance McMillian has been something that's really been fun to watch, and he's been really impactful, really good for you, really since he got here. But this has been a different kind of level, I think we'd have to say, that he's reached as Big 12 play has progressed. You called him possibly Tech's most important player last week, and I think you even sort of put him in a category of someone that some fans may still be taking for granted or kind of flying under a radar. You said his coach does not take him for granted. I don't even know if there's a fan out there that can take him for granted anymore, because that's as good as it gets over the last few games, I think, for an individual, what he's done for you.
Well, and when we said that.
First, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Whether it's sports, music, comedy, or beyond, we all love going to live events. And now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature trims all the fat to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You'll always find can't beat deals. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
There was a lot of people that disagreed with what I said. I mean, because I think you put up a poll question, and it was like, I think Toppin had more votes on either best or most important. I think, Hawkins and Darrion Williams. He's just kind of one of these under the radar dudes, but man, you're watching him flourish right now. And, what he did in Houston and what he did, I think last night, it's just big time. I mean, that little 3-shot sequence that he has where he just, I mean, these are haymakers, man. And these are from way out.
Yeah.
I think even one of the TV guys, Rich Hollenberg, was like, that's Steph Curry-esque. And that's right. You come off those screens and you've got momentum going the other way. It's just an elite skill. And when you can get, come off of a screen and get set, get a shot up really quickly, all that stuff. I mean, it takes a lot and a lot of practice, but he just kind of, I mean, it was like heat check, and then he heat checked it again. It was just and then it caused Scott Drew looked over to the scores table and he just pounded it, like we can't let him have those. And then he got another one, and that's what led to a timeout. That was the only thing that was cooling Chance off right there. But yeah, it was just flame throwing. I mean, it was unbelievable. Have not seen that in that building in a while, where somebody it does that, where you're just dropping them in like bang, bang, bang. It was that kind of like a little mini run, but his own personal one.
Yeah.
So
I think 9 points in a minute 17 or something like that. If I'm remembering correctly.
And credit to Elijah Hawkins for feeding him on some of that too. Your point guard is so much fun to watch, man. I mean, I just love.
Oh, what was he again? 7-1 last night, I think.
It's just so much fun to watch. I love Elijah Hawkins, and it's just funny how 2 months ago the conversation was very different, and it just shows you how long a basketball season is, and we say this every year, and how things change. You get yourself talked into certain things, and I just don't know. And boy, do the struggles or I just don't know about Hawkins. And he wasn't finishing the games. It was Christian Anderson that was finishing. I mean, where would you have been in this little stretch without Elijah Hawkins? But Chance McMillian, he set that place on fire last night. And man, because he kind of put the game over the top for you and allowed you to be in a position to go win it and hold on and continue to control it after Baylor had gone on a 10-0 run, I think, to early in the second half to get it right back and forth there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. And I'll take some more of that. Whether in the regular season, in March, whenever you want to go flamethrower mode again. Happy to have that happen. You're talking about something in Chance's shooting, and when's the last time we saw something like that in the USA, or have we seen it in a recent era? And I want to get to something before we're done that I had on my mind after last night's game that also involves kind of reflecting upon some things that we've seen in some recent years at United Supermarkets Arena. And that involves some similarities between this year's Red Raiders and some of the best teams that we've seen come through in some recent years, going back to the Chris Beard era, even through the Mark Adams era. And I think if you were watching the television broadcast last night, it may have gotten your attention at halftime. Some of the high praise, I believe it was Seth Greenberg, calling Texas Tech a Final Four team, said if he was a man of chance, if he was a betting man, the Red Raiders could be a Final Four team. And they go on to describe some of the characteristics that they see. And one of those I thought was really interesting that they mentioned was the fact that at this point in the season, it seems like players are really buying into their respective roles, which is probably not something that many fans are throwing out there as check marks or boxes to check as the season goes on. It's like, we need this guy to score 100. We need this guy to block 50. We need this guy to rebound 30. But does anybody ever say, I need everyone to fully embrace their roles? It's probably kind of lost. I know it is to me on a fan, but that clicked with me, Chris, because I really thought, you're right. There's a lot of different types of ways that impacts are being made on this team by these guys. And it's probably because they are embracing whatever role might be carved out for them to this point in the season, whether it's that or maybe some other things. Anything standing out to you that you're seeing on the floor that you feel like, man, I've seen something similar in another year gone by, and that was a really successful year. Doesn't just have to be the national final run, Elite 8 teams or Sweet 16 runs, things like that. I'm sure there are some similar traits. What's standing out to you?
Well, and I think what we touched on this recently, but I think what you've got is there's not a lot of ego here. There's not a lot of selfishness. I think there's not a lot of pouting. Everybody's kind of on the same page as far as we're just trying to get a result here. It doesn't matter how we get there, and it doesn't, because a lot of teams, man. Some dude's worried about how many shots he gets, how many minutes he's playing, or you got somebody in their ear that's filling them up, and then it goes sideways, and it bad body language and all that kind of stuff. I think about because embracing your role is just another way of saying role definition. And when teams have that, they're scary. They're scary to play because they embrace it. They're okay. Like, I'm okay being the dirty work guy. I'm okay being the, whatever guy. But the common themes here, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with the Final Four talk. I feel like this is all happening way too fast. It's so hard to get to the Final Four. It's
You're
so
unranked
difficult.
2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Week and a half ago.
There are phenomenal teams every year that don't even come close.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the tournament. And you've seen so many examples to the contrary, and whatever. It's just that's heavy steps right there on that kind of talk. But some similarities you've got is like I go back to, okay, let's go to the Final Four team. It's like I go back to, okay, let's go to the Final Four team. Brandon Francis embraced his role of coming off the bench, and whether it was Chris Beard, like kind of, it was like a mind game. Like, no, we value that role, and like Brandon, but he'd always kind of finished the game, and then in the title game, he played one of the best games of anybody out there. I go back to the Mark's first year in the Sweet 16 team, and Marcus Santos Silva had always been a starter. Well, on that team, he was coming off the bench. Well, I go back to these same Baylor Bears. Remember, you go beat Baylor in Waco, and Adonis Arms had that monster dunk, and Marcus Santos Silva got the stop against LJ Cryer, I think it was, at the very end of the game, off the bench, and it was a defensive stop. And you kind of thought about him as an offensive player, but those are the kinds of things and plays and people embracing the bigger picture and not getting caught up into their own deal. And you've got some of that going now. And I think the other thing that I would say, if you're talking similarities, when it is, again, something we've touched on, and we've been kind of out in front on this, but you have a different way. You can play whatever game anybody wants and still be good. I think it was pointed out after the game last night that the first half was more of a finesse game. The second half was more physical, and you won both halves. I think that you can play in a shootout, or you can play in a grind it out. And because that team's averaging 80 points a game. And I get that the VJ Edgecombe didn't play in this one. He's a potential top 5 pick. But to hold that team to just 59 points is big time. And that's part of it. Some people look at, well, they got lucky. Edgecombe didn't play. Well, I mean, you go to Baylor last year, and Robert Jennings and Kyron Lindsey were your only two bigs because Warren Washington didn't play, and they won by 6, and they had a first-round pick in Yev Misi, and you don't hear them apologizing for it. So it's just part of the Big 12 race, is like a game of attrition, and you just keep going. They don't get to cancel the games, or you don't get to go, can I get a timeout? We've got a lot going on here. Can we just pause? It's not like Zach Morrison Saved by the Bell, where you just look at the camera and go, and then fix everything, and then go time in. Okay, all good. Shout out to Kelly Kapowski, by the way.
Every day,
the GOAT.
That's right.
But there's some similarities for sure. But you have still so much basketball left to play, but it's kind of that different guy every night or whatever. But I still stand on the Chance part being your MIP. I mean, he plays all but, like 1 minute of this game last night, and at a high level. And I just think that he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. But the beauty thing is, it's not just the one guy. There's just so many different things that are happening here that collectively it's what's a lot of fun to watch. And why you've won 7 in a row. And that is extremely difficult to get done in the Big 12 Conference, and yet here you are.
Yeah, unbelievable. What were some of the longest runs some of those other teams had in the Big 12?
Well, your Big 12 title run, when you won the Big 12 championship, you had, I'm trying to remember, you went on a streak there to where you kind of, and it was about 7, 8, 9 games, but you won a game, and then you didn't lose until you show up to the Big 12 tournament, and you had this crazy loss against West Virginia. And I thought, I mean, I remember Chris Beard saying to those guys, like, you owe it to your family to get to the second round of the NCAA tournament. What we did, I mean, I'm embellishing a bit, but it was an uncomfortable, like we lose one day and then you couldn't leave till like noon or whatever the next day. It just felt like a miserable existence. Like you just wanted to go home. Nobody thought you were going to show up there as a Big 12 champ and then lose your first round game. And you just didn't have it. And, but that game, the end of that regular conference race, I mean, yeah, you went on a lengthy, but that's the same kind of conversations you're having here. It puts you into these categories to when you string 7 in a row, because that's that you enter into title contender type stuff, and that's where you're at right now. Now you're still looking up. You're still looking up at the standings because Arizona had an unbelievable win in Provo last night, but that's what it's put you into. And there's starting to be just a titch of separation here to where this is a 3 or 4 team race. It looks like, I don't know, but still 9 games left for everybody.
Man, can't wait to get to Saturday night in Tucson. Should be a great one. One of the best going in the nation this week as Tech hooks up with Arizona on the road. We will get set for that matchup on an upcoming episode as the Red Raiders try to make it a season sweep of the Wildcats. First, a little time to enjoy what happened against the Baylor Bears. So never going to take for granted an opportunity to beat Scott Drew and company. So glad it went that way, Chris. Enjoyed the conversation as always, man, and we'll see you for the next one.
Are we, and I know that's sacrilege right now with your basketball team playing so well, but we allowed to talk a little football the next time we get together? Is that allowed?
We've got a football schedule release now, and there are things that are not exactly the way I like it. And so I'll discuss these things.
I want to hear your
my specifications, of course. And I guess I just missed your Mark's call on this prior to this release, but I don't even feel like they asked me.
Yeah, bones to pick. I like it. I can't wait to hear. There, and I will say this: there are some things I do like about. It
was a mixed bag, I'll admit.
Yeah. So and we'll reconvene and discuss that on the next episode. How about that?
Yep, we'll keep getting ready for hoops this weekend. Of course, we still got a mailbag to go this week. Plenty more to dive into before we ship you off to the weekend. Thanks so much for hanging with us. Once again, today, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate all those everydayers out there for always riding along. And a big shout out to the Matador mob. Thanks for being out there. Get inside and become a Matador mobster by hitting the show notes, finding a link there for a free 14-day trial, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. Like you want to know, hey, Chris, did you hear from the Big 12 principal's office? Boom, shoot the text. If you're a Matador mobster, you find out. Thank you for being out there. Thanks for the time as always. For Chris, I'm Casey. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.